Week 17 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few tight ends I have as sleepers this week. The first guy, Durham Smythe of the Miami Dolphins. So Smythe, he's pretty much done nothing all season, but last week he was getting peppered with targets and he was making plays. And actually, Mike McDaniel said he's trying to get the tight end more involved in this offense to add another element. When you got a Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it's hard to get other players into the mix of things in the passing game. Even Mostert and Devon Achane have been decent receivers as well out of the backfield. So the last few games for Smythe, they're starting to get him the ball a little bit more. Week 15 versus Jets, 4 catches, 32 yards. And last week, once Waddle went out, Smythe put up some numbers, 5 catches, 56 yards versus the Cowboys. So week 17, it's going to be a shootout, I believe, at the Baltimore Ravens. Durham Smythe, he could work that middle of the field maybe and help this Miami Dolphin team. And we saw George Kittle last week go off for a nice ball game. So right now, while Smythe's available in 99% of fantasy leagues, he's a tight end. If you're desperation at the position or you just lost Hockenson as a sleeper option this week, the next tight end is going to be Hockenson's replacement, Josh Oliver of the Minnesota Vikings. So Oliver available in 99% of fantasy leagues. And last week, he came in relief for Hockenson, and he only had 1 catch for 33 yards. So right now, this week, a pretty decent matchup. Sunday Night Football versus the Packers. Give up the 18th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. So this offense, they're banged up for sure over there in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson, though, he's looked good. He's back in action over the last few weeks. Addison left last week's game. We don't know if he's going to play in this one. Hockenson obviously out for the season. So right now, Josh Oliver, like I mentioned, he's going to fill in for Hockenson in this ball game. And we'll see if he could go out there and make some plays. Nick Mullins, he's a quarterback that's a gunslinger, and he's not afraid to turn the football over and pushing it down the field. So this week, while Oliver is available in 99% of fantasy leagues, and you need the Hockenson replacement and there's no other options out there, maybe he could be a decent sleeper option this week. And the third and final tight end I have as a sleeper is Colby Parkinson of the Seattle Seahawks. So Parkinson, we've seen some flashes from him this season where he's been a touchdown-dependent tight end this year. So the last few weeks for Parkinson, week 14, the 49ers, 2 catches, 28 yards, a touchdown. Week 15 versus Philly, a catch, 6 yards. And then week 16 at Tennessee, 3 catches, 17 yards, and the game-winning touchdown late in the fourth quarter there. So this week here, decent matchup, middle of the pack type of matchup versus the Steelers. Give up the 16th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. So Parkinson, he's had a better year than Noah Fant at the tight end position, and he's played less snaps, and obviously the number 2 tight end for the Seahawks team. So Geno, he's had a comfortability with Parkinson in some games over the last couple of years, last season and this season. So right now, if you need a deep sleeper, he's available as well as Parkinson in 99% of fantasy leagues. That's a few tight ends I have as sleepers for week 17 of the fantasy football season.